Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me at this incredible event. And congratulations to the organizers. This is very, very beautiful event. Actually, I think I never talked in front of so many people. And thank you for your hospitality. Baku was a surprise for me. Was a surprise. The food was a surprise. It's very beautiful. Anyway, let me introduce my topic. And let me introduce how actually I developed interest in this topic. So the topic is developing interest, expanding interest in children with autism, and why it can be important. How did I develop this interest in this topic? I am from Italy, and when I graduated in Italy in 2002, there were not ABA opportunities, course opportunities, learning opportunities, and actually I didn't know much about ABA, and I was very, very lucky to have the opportunity to study in the United States. And there I discovered ABA. I enrolled in a program in special education, and my first class was about ABA, and I was struck. I really, really liked it. And then started working. Anyway, I stayed 4 years in the United States, and then I got a call from Italy saying, we would like you to start with some of your colleagues a program for autistic children adopting behavioral intervention, and decided to go back to Italy. And then that was around 2007. So in Italy, behavioral programs started to become popular around 2007, and now they're very, very popular. We have many different programs all around Italy. Some are public, some are private. But anyway, in 2007, I started working with very young kids. The program was early intensive intervention for children that were 2, 3 years old, and we did our program. And I kept working with these kids and families until now, basically. And now most of them are young adults. They are 16, some of them 18, 20. And what I experienced personally is that those that developed most adaptive skills, meaning social skills, communication skills, play, leisure skills, independence, were also those that had many different interests in their life, like music, singing, playing instrument, doing sports, transportation, traveling, food, going to restaurants, movie, theater, watching movies, different movies. And I was, I was impressed by the fact that even, actually I had a student I still work with, is, as we say in technical terms, even if I don't like that, we say is low functioning, so his verbal language skills are not advanced. But he has so many interests. He likes to paint, he likes to do ceramics, he likes to watch movies, he likes to travel, to take the airplane, he likes to go to restaurants and try different restaurants, that his behaviors are very adaptive in many different situations, and he can experience many different events. And the life quality of his family is actually very good. So that's how I start developing this interest. There's another reason. As you may expect, for students that are in the age, adolescents, young adults, we don't offer them too many hours of intervention. So what we have in Italy, we have early intensive intervention for children in the range between 2 and 10 years old. But after a certain age, the opportunity for training and to be followed by professionals it diminished. So they get 2 hours a week, 4 hours a week maximum. So I was also interested to find out what could be the most effective application and procedure that could produce still good outcomes with little hours, 2 hours, 4 hours a week. Okay. It's not working. This one, okay. So let's take a look at an overview. We're gonna go through why it is important to develop new interest in children with developmental disabilities and autism first. Then we will look at how we can monitor development of interest. You know, we like to take data. We like to monitor behaviors. And finally, we will take a look at very, very simple application procedure on how we can develop and increase interest and diversity of interest. So as we know, children with autism have restricted interest quite often, appear to be motivated by a limited number of unusual activities rather than a wide variety of activities common to their peers. I think this is a common event, especially young kids, but also older kids. They have restricted interest. They like to watch the same movie over and over, or to listen to the same song over and over, or to engage in self-stimulation for a long time. And this is, it's a symptom of autism. According to DSM-5, one of the key symptoms of autism is restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior, interest, or activity. So they may present what we call self-stimulation or stereotype, repetitive speech, motor movement, or use objects in a non-functional way over and over. But at the same time, it has been recognized that limited number or unusual motivation observed in children with autism is a central concern, having implication for intervention and for long-term outcome. So we have some data suggesting that more interest means more opportunities for teaching. More teaching means development or a wider behavioral spectrum. Many child developmental theories, including behavioral system theories, suggest that one of the ways children develop is through their continuous expanding of interest. And I have a 4 years child. My son is 4 years. And I can see that happening under my eyes. how through the expansion of interest, he develops new behaviors. It's quite surprising. So just to give you an example, just last week we did a trip with him. We took the plane, and he was interested in airplanes and how the airplane is conducted, and he was interested in tasting different foods, in walking, going to the museum, to the beach. And he presented new language skills, new motor skills, he learned new receptive skill. He knew some English words because we went to a foreign country, and he was interested in learning how to say thank you, how to say hello. So I can see how the increased development of his skills is strictly related to development and to the diversification of his interest, the expansion of his interest. So the continuous expansion of interest allows contact with new environmental stimuli that results in further potential for increased knowledge and advance in skill repertoire. This is a quote from Novak and Pelaez. In other words, our behaviors appear to be strongly tied to our interest or preference for events. And this is not just for autistic children. This is for everyone, for all of us. I like to say, we are what we like. Our interests guide our behaviors. So just to give you a quick picture of me, those are my interests. So I like to play, engage, to spend time with my son. I have a dog. I like to spend time with my friends. I play the drum. I like to watch TV series. I like to go looking for mushrooms in the woods. I like to taste all different kinds of food, especially Azerbaijan food. It's great. I like to work with my children in the center. I like to chill on the sofa sometime. And also, I like to attend conferences like this. So I would say that most of my behaviors I present every single day are directed towards these goals. And my life would be very, very different if my only interest would be just watching TV series. My behavioral repertoire would be much, much more restricted. I would basically spend all time in front of a TV, maybe switching from one TV series to another. And my life would look very different. So, I'm sorry for some technical terms here, but development of interest could be what we call a behavioral cusp in behavioral terms. It could be responsible for the development of new reinforcers, following new SDs or comprehension of stimuli from the environment, responsible for the development of new responses, for attending new social communities and new environments. Behavioral cusp means it's a sort of like explosion of, it's a cusp of behaviors. Like, for instance, once children start reading books, and they enjoy reading books, we consider that a behavioral cusp. Because through reading and comprehension of what they read and interest in books, now books become potential reinforcers. And through reading, they start learning and understanding new stimuli. And they start developing new responses. And they can now attend new social communities and environments. So we already said why it is important, but let's take a look at some more details of that. So why it is important to develop new interest in children with developmental disabilities and autism. One of the first reasons could be that through the expansion of interest and diversification of interest, the rates of socially appropriate behaviors may increase, while rates of inappropriate behaviors may decrease. So let's say a child that develops interest in construction, in building bridges or houses or towers, may start presenting more social appropriate behaviors with his peers, maybe observing them, maybe imitating them, maybe asking for pieces. And maybe it would decrease certain inappropriate behaviors. Or, for example, engaging a child looking at a book may decrease also stereotypic behaviors. Second reason, interest expansion can lead to new social opportunities, and I find this point very, very important for family. And promote greater flexibility when bringing them to new environments. I'll give an example here. If a child develops as a new preference coloring, he may be more successful in a restaurant. And to take him in a restaurant, he may not display problem behaviors because he's interested in coloring. Or if he develops interest in playing some table games at the restaurant, or to listen to song while he's waiting for food, or to play with mom and dad on some application. So he developed the interest in doing, and he likes it, he enjoys that. There will be less opportunities for problem behaviors. Less opportunities for problem behaviors means also that the family will feel more relaxed. They will repeat probably in the future that experience. Many family I know, sometimes they don't go out, they don't go to restaurants, they don't travel, they don't participate to community events, birthday party, because they're afraid of their son or daughter displaying problem behaviors. But if we are able to expand interest in things that can go on during those activities, well, then there will be less reason for problem behavior. Finally, from an ABA program's intervention perspective, the addition of new reinforcers in ABA programs may help prevent satiation and could make teaching more effective. So a large variety of interests may secure high motivation. For us, when we teach, motivation is very important. We want the child to be always very highly motivated. We want the child to enjoy the materials, the toys, the activities that we have in the learning environment. Finally, the expansion of interest, diversification of interest, it's very important for, as I said, for families too. So we talked about that. I'll just quickly skip it. In summary, The benefits for monitoring and expanding new and diverse interests would be useful in all teaching environments and may foster important and pervasive changes in the child's development. But how can we expand interest in children with autism when needed? And I add when needed because some of the kids I work with, they have a lot of interest. Many others, they don't. So when this is a problem, what can we do? So let's take a look at what the scientific literature is suggesting at the moment. So there is been a considerable body of research on autism intervention directed towards understanding the variables that produce development of verbal behavior and social behavior. There is limited information about how we produce new interest in children. What are the variables responsible? Why some children develop quickly many new interests, why others don't? We know a lot about how to increase imitation, observing, learning, listening, communication, language skill, social and play, self-help, academics. But few interventions directly address conditioning new interest or providing measures to evaluate development of interest. So at the moment, there are not well-controlled studies that have been replicated with multiple children. So we don't have much information, and I hope that in the future we will have more information from research. In the meantime, we can follow some suggested guidelines and recommendations. And I put the 3 recommendations I found in my experience to be more useful. First of all, identify a measurement system to monitor expansion of interest. Monitor system means let's measure what is the expansion in different toys, activity, materials, environment, what's happening with the interest of a child. If needed, well, let's increase the environmental stimulation. So let's introduce in the environment new materials, new activities, new toys, new social events. Then we will take a look at a simple application, simple procedure called stimulus-stimulus pairing. And here I have a message for translation. It's very difficult to translate this term, stimulus-stimulus pairing. We had a lot of problems in Italy in translating the word pairing. We could not find it. So, yeah, I will explain the meaning in detail later on. So as a measuring system, Lai, Rosales, Zeug, and Byman suggested a variety of measures that can be helpful in monitoring development of interest in behavioral programs for children with autism. Basically what they did, how they developed the measurement system, they tracked the number of different toys the child approached or contacted across the week, the number of different items requested during each session, number of new items requested during session, new events e-engage, toys, social events, edible, new events e-rejected, engagement duration with new toy, and affect while engaging. Affect means if he was smiling, if he showed happiness and pleasure. So if theories are correct in that expansion of play and diverse interests are important for future development, then a good measurement system can help us understanding if this is happening. If this is happening, we have nothing to do. Just, let it happen. It's good. But not all children have such outcome, and it is possible that the continuation of restricted and repetitive activities may play a role. I have a student whose only and main interest for about 10 years was to listen to train schedules from the train station. It would record the voice from the train station saying, there is a train coming on track 2 at 8:30 from Milan, going to Rome. And he would listen all day to that. And he did that for many, many, many years. And he would not develop new interest. So once data are being taken and suggest that expansion of interest is not happening, it is important to implement procedures that are likely to expand your child's interest. So we will take a look at some of this procedure. I selected 2, as I said. So one is enriching the environment. Sometimes I personally observe that the environment of our students, especially after a certain age, becomes a quite poor environment, especially in the school settings. I'm talking about Italy, I don't know here. So we have environments that remain unchanged for long periods, sometimes years, and there's poor environmental stimulation. Maybe this is linked to the lack of communication, so some of our students have no way of expressing their needs and their desires, so the environment remains the same, My son, when he wants a new toy, is telling me what he wants. It takes him like 2 seconds to tell me what is the new toy he wants. And then after that toy, he wants another toy. And then after the toy, he wants, and in the meantime, the environment becomes very rich of toys. But often with our children, we don't have this opportunity because they don't communicate what they need. So the environment remains poor. Sometimes we have lack of resources, like lack of money, especially, so we cannot buy too many toys, and I don't know, maybe I'm talking about older kids, like computer, tablet, what do you call it? To play PlayStations, Wii, or music instruments, stuff like that. Also, there's some, in Italy, there's some educational perspective suggesting, especially in school again, where the environment should be more clean of distraction. So not too many toys and activities in the environment, in the school environment, and that the environment remains the same for years and years and years. So enriching the environment, it's a simple procedure, but not cheap. Because you have to make sure that the environment is rich with toys, activities, materials, social events. And could be responsible for the expansion of interest. I took some pictures from my center, the center we have in Florence. So our center, you walk in, and it's like walking into a toy store. As a matter of fact, so many times happen because our windows are on the street and we have so many people like knocking or ringing the bell, asking if it's it's a toy store. They want to buy stuff. So I just put some pictures, some ideas of, how to enrich the environment, starting from young kids to older. But you're probably already doing that. So we have a lot of toys, especially for youngest, involving playing with water, but different. Like that's a water fountain, and they can change the course of the water. And then we have small boats that get bigger if you put water in, and all different kind of boats and fishes that can swim into the water. Sandboxes, where you can, move a sand, fountain with sand. All different kind of bubbles, giant bubbles, small bubbles, the gun blowing bubbles, the frog blowing bubbles, the train making bubbles, a diversification of bubbles. So maybe they get interest in many different kinds of bubbles, so they can learn to express big bubble, small bubble, train bubble, frog bubble. Okay, physical activities like a slide, trampoline, all sort of bicycles and scooter, many different kinds of animals, many different kinds. I had this kid. He walks into the center, and he starts looking. He takes out of the boxes. This was one of the first meetings, so we were not doing any training, just letting him engage with the environment. And after he takes all these animals out, he finally finds a dinosaurs he likes, And then we discovered that he was much into dinosaurs. So we got him all sorts of dinosaurs so we could teach, big, small, colors with dinosaurs. And so we expand quickly the interest from that dinosaurs to many other different kinds of dinosaurs so he could increase his language skills. Okay, airplanes, helicopter, all different kinds of cars, ambulance, firefighters, all sorts of ramps. Some of our kids are very interested into the noises from ovens, microwave, coffee machines, dishwasher, washing machine, castle. Then these are for stepping into the age of elementary school, when they also need to develop interest in more structured play, like coloring, drawing, coloring all sorts of things, many different books, table activities, taking turn games, and then finally also, video games, tablets, computer, music instruments, karaoke. So we try to enrich our environment so we have all those opportunities for them. Yeah, and this is how it looks like. So it's not that we present all those toys all together, all in once, just like a river, a stream. We select some, we present, we check if they like or not. If they like, okay, one more. Then we try another one, then we try, and then at the end, their interest expands, and we have a diversification. So I show you some example, very simple example of enrichment, environmental enrichment. So this is an example from Eric. He's 15 years old. He really likes, one of his main interests is watching trains at train stations or watching airplanes at the airport. And we do have a token economy system with him or a behavioral contract And if he gets to do what he's supposed to do during the week, then at the end of the week, he can go to watch trains at the train station, he can go to the airport watching airplanes. So we're trying to expand his interest towards other activities, and not just watching trains, which is mainly a visual and auditory stimulation. So we introduced new games and activities related to his existing interest, like playing train simulator on video games, or flight simulators, or building train sets, so like real train sets, looking real train sets, or taking freestyle dance classes because he likes this, I don't know how to define it in English, the music that is, it sounds like a train, you know? So this is the first time we present him. So there is no teaching here. Just we present flight simulator and we measure his reactions, you know? We just give him some simple instruction how it works, what he's supposed to do. You know? So we measure how much time is engaged, if he's showing some effect, if he's showing pleasure, if he's walking away, you know, and then we decide, okay, this is a new interest. And when, you know, if we think it's a new interest, then we start using that in many different settings. This is train simulator. So that's him playing with the train. Also, we set the game so he can play with peers, especially the flight simulator. He could have races with other peers from his class. Also, we use flight simulator. Once he developed interest into the flight simulators, we use the flight simulators for teaching geography and teaching some mathematics skills. And this is him dancing. This is first class, no teaching here. So his life was just in reach of a new event, dancing with peers. And he liked that a lot. I'm just gonna skip this because I'm a little bit out of time. So this is a nice, interesting article. If you want to take a look, you'll find it on Google. You'll have my slide, by the way. So from my slide, you just Google the title and you get it. Environmental enrichment as an effective treatment for autism. There's some data suggesting that enriching the environment by itself produces some positive effects. And now let's go to stimulus-stimulus pairing. So what is stimulus-stimulus? So if enriching the environment is not enough, just enriching the environment is not enough, we should take a step forward. So let's try a different application. How do we know if enrichment environment is not working? Well, we're measuring the behaviors, okay? We're taking tracks of the behaviors. So if enriching the environment is not working, then we start using stimulus-stimulus pairing, which is a procedure in which one stimulus is delivered simultaneously to a reinforcing stimulus. In other words, a low preference event is delivered together with a high preference event. They come together. And this procedure may increase the value of a lower preference after certain numbers of presentations. Pairing has been frequently used in treatment for feeding disorders, for children that have, they're selective for food, so they eat only certain food, only certain color, only certain consistency. So this stimulus-stimulus pairing has been used to increase their variety of food consumption. And several studies suggest simultaneous pairing results in greater increase in the consumption of non-preferred foods. And just to give you an example, this is my son, by the way. So he really loves pasta. Pasta is, I guess you know Italian pasta, you know, it's, yeah. So he really loves pasta. But he never tried Vietnamese food. It's not so common to have Vietnamese food in Italy. And so we go to a Vietnamese restaurant during our trip, and we pair noodles, which is pasta that he likes, with Asian flavors, like soy sauce and cilantro that is not so common in Italy. And we don't say anything, no training, and he starts eating, and he likes it. And there's an expansion here. He's eating something new he never had before. There's a new behavior going on, a new preference. He was really enjoying it. So going back to develop a new preference with toys and activities, so far there's only one study from what I know attempting to develop preferences for tangible items and activity using pairing procedures. So preference conditioning sessions were conducted so that low preference were made available concurrently with reinforcement in order to increase the value of low preferences. And I show you quickly how this process works. So imagine an autistic child with restricted interest, and then it's limited to a rainbow string. I don't know if you know rainbow string. You can move it around, you know, you can self-stimulate yourself with it, and he really likes that. He really enjoys that. But he doesn't like much, or is quite neutral towards more functional cause-effect toys. So the physical feature of this toy produce no pleasure for him. So if we use the stimulus-stimulus pairing procedure, what we start doing is just pairing these two events together. So presenting together the functional toy with the string, plus voice, physical touch, behaviors of caregiver or therapist if child likes it. And then over time, pairing after pairing, we try to fade, let me go back, we try to fade the presence. This is not just 3 pairings, it's sometimes hundreds of pairings. And then over time, the other toy, the low preferred toy, starts acquiring new value and increase reinforcing value for the child. Okay, I'll show you some example here. Kevin is 11 years old, and his main interest is to listen to rock and pop music, just from one artist. And he's in middle school, and he has to spend most of his time sitting. You know, he doesn't want to sit, he doesn't want to color, he doesn't want to draw, he doesn't want to copy letter. He cannot write. We just started this intervention, but he cannot write, he cannot read. But most of the time, it's in his school is like, I don't want to sit, I don't want to write, I don't want to color, you know. So what we did, we tried to pair his favorite pop rock music with activities like drawing and coloring. So you can see him here. He's coloring, but in the background, there is his favorite music going on. Okay? And the same here for drawing. He's drawing, and in the background his favorite pop music going on. So whenever he draws, he colors, he writes, there's this music. And we hope they will develop more interest in these activities. Also, oh, I went too far. Still, Kevin is quite neutral or indifferent towards peers. He doesn't interact too much with peers. He has no interest in interacting with peers. So we're doing a very, very simple stimulus pairing with another boy. So this guy here, he's in charge for delivering chips to Kevin. So Kevin can get chips only from this friend. And we hope to do some pairing there so that Kevin increases interest in his friend. So caregivers, teachers, therapists do not deliver chips to Kevin. Only his friend can do it. Okay. Oh, sorry. So let me show you quickly the results with Kevin. So we started an intervention, and Kevin's interests were quite strictly related to food: pizza, chips, bread, chocolate, juice, sausage, candy, and so on. He's overweight, but on a diet, the diet doesn't work. He shows no functional independent play. His preferences are mainly related to food and drinks. He only liked to listen to 2 songs and to ride the bicycle. So most of his day is engaged, his behaviors are mainly directed towards finding foods. When he's in the house, he looks for food, he opens the fridge, he steals food during meals. So we wanted to extend and expand his interest so it would decrease this interest in food. So we did the intervention in the center. We had only 2 hours a week. As I said at the beginning, I'm quite interested in identifying intervention that can be effective even if they're just 2-4 hours a week. The goal was to increase interest and engagement in appropriate activities. And we used the measure system that we looked at before, so we measure number of different requests, numbers of toys and events he engaged functionally, number of different play actions. So during baseline, he only wants and he only likes food. Then we start our stimulus pairing. So we paired events like music, chip, pizza, nuts, tickle, verbal praise, and by the way, food in very, very small quantity. We paired with new items like taking turn games, symbolic games, tablet games, independent and art and craft. So stuff like this, we try to increase the value of these activities, taking turn games, symbolic games, tablet games, art and craft. And again, the process was to pair reinforcers, things he likes, with new activity, and pairing after pairing, decrease the presence of a high reinforcement until he liked the game the activity that we presented. And we did that for many different toys. So here are some results. Simple graph. You should know that behavior analysts really like graph. for us is like watching a movie, TV series, a nice picture. We really enjoy looking at graph. And this is a very, very simple graph. And this is a graph that actually the therapists produce during session. So they start the intervention and then they look, what happened? Is it Kevin increasing the number of different requests? Yes, this is increasing the number of different requests. So it's increasing, it's expanding his interest. Then we looked at events and activity engaged by type. So he's increasing mostly his interest into toys and activities. And then we looked at the number of different toys he engaged with during sessions. And he's increasing that too. That's probably a message. He's increasing, he's expanding, he's diversifying his interest. And the number of different play actions, because sometimes the expansion of interest is just, it's a game becoming more complex. Okay, and that's all sorts of videos about him engaging independently and choosing those activities and games instead of looking for food, basically. Now, next step would be to generalize this, because the problem is not at our center. He spends only 2 hours a week at our center. So the center is like a laboratory, you know. It doesn't make much sense if he is enjoying these activities just at the center. We need to generalize this in school and at home in particular. So now we introduce all these activities that we conditioned at the center. We are introducing all these activities at home and in school so that he can present, he can engage with those activities, also with peers and his sister. Okay, I would like to finish with a quote from Skinner that I really, really like. Regard no practice as immutable, change and be ready to change again. Accept no eternal verity experiment. Thank you.
Насколько правильно отучивать ребенка от безобидных привычек и стереотипного поведения?
Okay, so stereotype, self-stimulation. We all self-stimulate ourselves. I do it too. I touch my bear, I self-stimulate myself quite often. And in my opinion, our goal is not to, well, first of all, self-stimulation is not always a problem behavior, in my opinion. It really depends on the impact on the child's life, on if self-stimulation is happening very, very often, so it's a barrier for learning. So it's not a problem behavior in itself. If it's happening too often, what we can teach is when to do for how long. That's, I like it to think like, to give opportunity to self-stimulate in certain situation, in certain environment. So to teach a child not to totally eliminate the need for that self-stimulation, but to learn when to do it and in what circumstances.
Əslində suallarımız çoxdur, amma vaxtımız bitdikdən sonra son sualdır, or last question for today. Бывают ли среди детей с аутизмом такие дети с хорошо развитой речью и высоким интеллектом, но у них отсутствуют какие-то поведенческие навыки, что мешает диагностировать у них аутизм.
Well, in the spectrum of autism, we have many different. We may have many different characteristics, but the diagnostic tools are quite clear. So, yeah, a child has language skills. Having language skills doesn't necessarily mean that it's not autistic. So, yeah, high functioning children with a lot of language skills may present deficits in social skills, and for this reason, they're in the spectrum. Yeah.
That's all. Thank you very much. Teşekkür ederim.